everyone. Welcome to the Glow podcast. I have a very exciting guest here with me today, and I'm super excited to talk to him. But if you are new here, we are Tailored Marketing, and we partner with organizations in healthcare, longevity, and the wellness space to fuel growth through strategic marketing strategies. So if you are interested, drop a comment below. Vance, thank you so much for coming on. I'm really excited to talk to you. If you would, I would love if you would kind of just go ahead and give a little bit of an introduction so the audience knows who you are.
You bet. Thanks, Taylor, for having me. My name is Vance Clement. I'm the CEO of Lineus Medical. We're a vascular access company, meaning we sell products in the peripheral IV space for mainly hospitals, but anywhere there's a peripheral IV used, our products can be used. And our company is based in Fayetteville, Arkansas, up in the northwest corner of Arkansas, if you haven't heard that.
Awesome. And so I know we talked a little bit too about what you all are working on over there at Lineus, but I would love for you to just kind of go ahead and tell the audience the product that you all have been innovating with. And I know we talked about too, it's obviously for patients and also for nurses.
Right. Well, it's nice to have a product that's quick and easy to demo, so I'll do that. Yeah. This is our little device. It's called Safe Break Vascular, and it's the first FDA cleared device that is a breakaway for any medical line. So our idea was that when an IV line gets pulled on, rather than damaging the vein and causing an IV to fail, or the IV actually pulling completely out of the patient, that we wanted to create a breakaway for it. So I'll show how it works really quickly. The nurse will take the tubing from the IV pump and screw it in like so. They would fill this line up with fluid till they have a drop come out because they didn't want to put any air in the human body. And then the patient has an IV somewhere on their arm or anywhere on their body, really. And they all have these kind of standardized connectors on the end of them. The nurse will take an alcohol wipe and get it clean, and then they screw in the other end of Safe Break into it. So that's the entire installation process. So it's a super easy product to install and learn. Before our product was invented, the nurse would just take the tubing and connect it directly to the patient. So we're just this new device in the middle that is a weak point in the line that separates when something damaging happens. So I'll demonstrate that you can perform activities of daily living. People can talk on their phones, wash their hands, go for a walk, whatever they need to do, and medicine just passes from the pump into the patient. But when this force reaches 4 pounds or more, the device is going to separate on purpose to protect the patient. So on the patient side of the line, there's a valve that closes and keeps them from bleeding. And on the IV pump side of the line, there's a valve that closes when it separates that keeps the IV pump from continuing to pump medication all over the floor or in the bed. So we're eliminating the gown changes for the patient, the sheet changes, the spills on the floor, which could be just saline solution or a radioactive chemotherapy drug. You don't know what the patient's actually getting. And when this valve occludes the line to the IV pump, you're getting an alarm on the pump is going off, letting the nurse know they should come in the room to check things out. When they come in, all they have to do is remove these 2 separated components. They'll throw those in the trash. They'll open up a new sterile Safe Break and install it in the line, and they'll restart the patient's IV. So the patient's avoided a needle stick, nurse has saved a whole bunch of time, and the hospital doesn't have to buy more medication or all these supplies that got wasted in the process. So I call it the win-win-win. There's no real loser in the overall equation. So that's what we're doing. We were cleared by the FDA in May of 2021. And so it's a completely new innovation, a new class of product with the FDA. There was never a breakaway for any other medical line. So we're just trying to get the word out. That's the hardest part with over 2 million nurses in the United States, trying to shout as loud as we can from the top of the mountain about it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I feel like too, like you said, it's a win-win for everybody. You're saving materials and cost for the hospital, number one. And then you're also obviously helping the patient so they don't have to get restuck. And then also saving the nurse time and energy having to do that. And you brought up that also with, a radioactive cancer treatment that you have in an IV, if they have to do that, then it's okay, they're going to have to put on a hazmat suit, and it's just a lot of effort and energy and time that the nurse could be spent treating that patient or with other patients as well too.
Yeah, obviously gown changes and spill cleanups and sheet changes, those are non-value added activities. The patient doesn't want to sit in a wet bed and the
Yeah.
nurse doesn't want to have to get them up and into a chair and all that stuff. So the time, I think that the amazing thing about it is the normal time to restart an IV if one gets pulled out is somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And we've timed in clinical studies, it only takes 5 minutes to replace a safe break when it separates. So the difference between 5 minutes and 20 or 30 minutes, the nurse is saving 15 to 25 minutes of time. It's not 2 or 3 minutes. It's quite a lot. And we all know it's been in the media so much that nurses are overwhelmed ever since COVID. It's tough for hospitals to retain them, and the workload is just difficult, and they have too many patients they have to manage. And so anything we can do to save 15 to 25 minutes of time in their day is quite significant.
Yeah, that's a significant amount of time, especially if you have that happen multiple times throughout the day too.
Right.
Then it becomes hour and a half, or whatever and everything. So I know we talked about this too. It is, it's a rather simple invention. Like, it's not like life changing or anything like that. It's something simple that you kind of would have thought somebody would have thought of at some point. Why do you think that nobody has thought of it, and what made kind of yours and your team's thought process different than maybe those before you?
Yeah, well, we had the idea because one of the gentlemen involved at the very, very beginning had driven away from the gas pump with the gas pump handle still in his gas tank. He had done that twice.
Yeah.
And he was talking to the nurse about problems they were having, and one of the things the nurse mentioned was that IVs get pulled out, and so he was like, well, he's had that experience at the gas station. He was like, why don't they have a breakaway like they have at the gas station? So, light bulb comes on. And so in the patent search and looking to see if anybody else had anything in that space, actually somebody had come up with something. I think it was in the late 1980s even. So It's been the opportunity to do it, but it was one of the big companies that sells IV lines. So what happens if they save an IV line?
Yeah.
They don't sell another IV line. So I would put this kind of in the Kodak invented the digital camera, but Kodak is out of business now because they were selling film at the time, right? And so they didn't want to disrupt their business model. Well, they started saving lines, they would sell less lines. So eventually, I believe this will be the standard of care, and they will sell less lines, but it took a startup that didn't have all those other products to potentially lose revenue to get out in front of it and try to do something about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that totally makes sense, because if they're going to sell more of Safe Break or a similar technology, then they're not going to sell as many of the IV lines, and then the IV lines might be more profitable. So why would they want to promote selling that?
That's right. Well, it's like Blockbuster should have bought Netflix, right? At one point in time when they realized DVDs were going to get killed, but they didn't make that. It seemed like a super expensive investment at the time, but that would have been the best thing they ever could have done, right?
Yeah, no, that's so funny how that works out for sure. And so I know you said that you all have your FDA clearance and you got it in 2021. And so can you kind of walk me through a little bit of kind of the challenges with that? Obviously, it is challenging to go through that process.
Yes, that's a whole podcast all to itself. I think there are podcasts on just getting products through the FDA.
Yeah.
The FDA is kind of like the dentist or the IRS a little bit, right? It's you got to go and you have to file your taxes, but it's not ever pleasant.
Yeah.
This device is rather simple. There's no software, there's no electricity, so that makes it all a little more straightforward. Probably gotten anywhere between 30 to 50 products through the FDA.
Okay.
And when I saw this, I thought, this is straightforward. This will be easy. I was wrong.
Yeah.
So I'll try to condense the story a little bit, but I'll give some movies started at the end of the movie and then tell you more about it. It took us 6 years and $6 million to get cleared. So that's the bottom line on getting clearance. And some of the major steps along the way were the normal process to get a device cleared by the FDA is to submit a 510K. And a 510K is an application where there's another device that exists that's similar to your product already. So think about like you're coming out with a new hip replacement and there have already been 150 different types of hip replacements that have been cleared. And so all you have to do is prove equivalence to one of those that's already been cleared and show that yours is as safe as that one. And the FDA will clear you. So that's the easiest way. And we filed for a 510K, and the FDA gave us a 510K evaluation and told us all the deficiencies with our submission for a 510K. And you're given 6 months to resolve all those deficiencies. You could get 3 deficiencies or you could get 100 deficiencies. Well, we got a lot of deficiencies. So we set about trying to solve all of them, and there was one that we could not get resolved in that 6-month time frame. So we had to withdraw our 510K, and about 3 months later, we figured it all out and we resolved that last one, and so we had to submit a new 510K. So we submitted a new 510K, and it takes them, the FDA, 90 days to review it, and then they came back and they said, well, this device can't be 510K. And so you're like, wait, we just had a 510K review with all these deficiencies, and we've submitted a new one, and they're like, no, that was a mistake. We shouldn't have done that. So yeah, and that's where that's where I kind of say it's like the IRS, you could kind of fight it, but they're just going to do your tax review the next year. So you're fighting with the people that have to review your stuff. So you always want to stay on a friendly basis. We opted to do what's called a de novo application. And a de novo is Latin for new. And that is for like if you come out with a new artificial heart and there's never been an artificial heart before or something. The FDA said, well, there's never been a breakaway device for any kind of medical line, and so we're going to require that you do a de novo. So de novos require clinical studies to get cleared usually. So that makes it more expensive and longer. Well, we had completed a prospective study where 40 patients had gotten safe breaks at a very reputable hospital, Barnes-Jewish in St. Louis, one of the 50 largest hospitals in the United States. And the results were really great from that study. But it was only 40 patients, and there was not a control group. It was just a prospective study. So the FDA said, this isn't good enough. We want a randomized controlled trial, which is top-tier scientific evidence. Which is a lot for this little simple device. That was surprising to us as well. But we had decided we wanted to do one and already had a hospital lined up to do one. We just thought we would be doing it for marketing reasons, not for FDA clearance reasons. So we set about doing that, and that took another 9 months and $250,000. You know, to accomplish that task. But the results were amazing, and when we had that data, we submitted to the FDA, and I think I have these numbers memorized. I may be off just a little bit, but in general, 510Ks with the FDA is somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 any given year. So thousands of them. And I believe in 2021 when we were cleared, there were 21 de novos that were cleared. So it's kind of a rare space to be in there. You create a brand new class of medical device when you do that. From a start perspective, it makes your company worth a little bit more because you have de novo clearance and not 510K clearance.
Wow, that's
But everybody
super
else
cool.
that comes after us will submit a 510K application using our device as their predicate device going forward.
That's really cool though, honestly. I mean, it sounds like the process was a lot harder than maybe it needed to be, but that is cool that you got the de novo clearance and everything, and now, like you said too, it almost like looks better and more like legit kind of.
Well, you know, and putting the FDA in the good light on all of that is simply that they're looking out for the public. And they felt like this was necessary for this device, and they made us go that extra mile. And the device was cleared with better safety review from the FDA than a regular 510K. So kudos for them for watching out for all of us, in their reviews.
No, definitely. That completely makes sense. So besides getting FDA clearance, what are some other challenges kind of that you guys have faced during the process? I know right now you're in some hospitals, of course. Has there been any kind of challenges with trying to get the device into other hospitals?
I think one of the interesting things is that there's clinical literature that exposes how often the IVs fail. And there's a really, really kind of landmark study that did a review of all peripheral IV studies. And it's remarkable that peripheral IVs fail 46% of the time, according to this meta-analysis.
Wow.
And the best performing hospital had a 36% failure rate, and the worst performing hospital had a 63% failure rate. So all those are bad. All those are bad, right? But this is, IVs started being used in mass around World War I, 1918, right? So here we are over 100 years later, and we still have a failure rate of this device that's been used for 100 years and it's at 46%. It's quite shocking. So in studies, that's the case, where they specifically look at every line and did it survive, did it not survive, did the patient just exit the hospital and they stopped treatment, pulled out the IV, did it get pulled out, did it have other complications? When they really study it, that's the complication rate. But in hospitals, nurses don't track it like that. They really just say, oh, Taylor got an IV installed on this date at this time, might not record how many sticks you had, etc. And then you're really lucky in the electronic medical record if they record when it ended. Taylor is leaving the hospital on this date 3 days later and we removed her IV. Nurses are having to chart everything about 5 or 6 patients at the same time, and they just don't record their data about IVs. They don't say patient was walking down the hallway, tripped over their line, you don't know why. They might just say IV in left arm stopped, new IV started in right arm, and that's all that would be in the data. So when we go into the hospital and we say, well, you've got a problem with IVs, every hospital has a problem with IVs. They're like, well, let me pull my electronic medical records. And then they'll say, I don't see any problem. There's no problem here. So obviously it's really hard to sell a product with a problem not being obviously exposed to everybody. But if they go and walk down the hall and ask their nurses in any given unit, the nurse will be like, yeah, I had to restart 2 IVs yesterday. And the day before I had to restart 2 IVs. Every floor nurse knows IVs fail regularly, but they don't capture and document it. So this paper where it exposed that the failure rates are so high, the title of it is the accepted but unacceptable, failure rate of IVs. It's just accepted. Just put in another one. It's not super expensive. It's $50. It's not like it's $1,000. So they just put in another one. So that's exposing the problem and getting somebody that really knows it and sees it. And sometimes we have to do a study of what that hospital situation is currently, get a baseline before our product evaluation takes place. Because if we don't get that baseline, that the people on the committees that don't deal with IVs every day would be like, I don't think we have a problem. So we have to expose it to them first. So that's a really tough part.
Yeah, that is tough. It's almost like the administration, they don't know that there's a problem because it's not documented anywhere. But if you talk to probably any nurse in any hospital, they're like, yeah, this is something we deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, they're tracking falls, they're tracking central line bloodstream infections. These are top tier things we're concerned about. If there's a fall, everybody in the hospital knows about it.
Yeah.
But IVs, no. They replace them all the time, every day, and it's just considered a part of being in the hospital.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They're probably so used to it, too, that, they don't even really view it as a problem. It's just a part of every day.
That's right. That's right. But for the nurses know it's a problem. I mean, a nurse, if you talk to any nurse, they've got all these horror stories. There's, at 2 a.m. I get called into the patient's room. I go in the patient's room, and the patient has their IV, and there's blood on the bed, and they're holding their IV in their hand, and they're presenting me with a present. Hey, I got my IV for you. Everybody has those kinds of things. And even nurses. I was walking with the patient. I tripped over their line, pulled out their IV line, right? They're accidents. And we did a study of, I believe it's 55 consecutive IV dislodgements at one hospital to trace how much it costs when there's a problem. And they had IV dislodgements in people that were in their 20s. They had IV dislodgements in people that were in their 90s. And why is that? It's because they're accidents. It's people being moved from their bed to a wheelchair, or washing their hands in the bathroom and it gets caught on the doorknob. So those don't just happen to people that are really old with cognitive issues. It happens to we looked at every decade of life. People in their 50s and 60s had them. The average age was 65 in our 55 dislodgements, but guess what the average age of somebody in the hospital? It's probably around 65. It's not, that doesn't skew to people in their 30s for, some reason. So yeah, it's a pervasive problem across all age groups. But I do believe, in general, if you wanted to pick who is this device best for, it's for people that can't follow or understand the directions as intended by a nurse about their IV.
Yeah.
And that's the very old, who are more likely to have cognitive issues, and it's the very young that just simply don't understand, little pediatric patients. The product can be used on people by the FDA. It's indicated for 2 weeks of age and above, but obviously a 2-year-old or a toddler that wants to run is not paying attention to their IV line.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I'm sure pediatric nurses would really, really appreciate this product for sure.
Yeah, I always say if you're sticking the baby, you're sticking mom and dad too. Everybody feels that. It's awful. So it's good for the whole family.
Definitely. And so I know you mentioned too that like it's just been a challenge kind of educating some of the administrators in hospitals with why they need this product and how it's kind of going to benefit them and their staff as well. And so how are you guys kind of going about this education process? You mentioned clinical trials, but is there any other way that you are kind of reaching these administrators within the hospitals?
Yeah, so from a marketing perspective, that you got your bell curve and you've got your early adopters and innovators that are out here on the tail. That's who our customers are today. Those are the people that see it. Oh, I gotta have it. It's great. I know we have a problem. And if that's the chief nursing officer that's seeing it and saying that, then we've got clout and we can move on through the hospital. If it's a floor nurse that just works in a unit taking care of 5 or 6 patients, it's a bigger battle to fight and so forth. We've transitioned our sales methodologies from going to meetings where we would meet a lot of floor nurses because they are all totally excited about it and want it immediately, to going to meetings that have chief nursing officers, head of nursing units, head of infection control. So we're doing much more top-down selling rather than bottom-up selling than we had in the past. But ultimately, Taylor, there's no replacement for clinical data.
Yeah.
So we've had some pretty dramatic cases. We had a child in a hospital in Ohio that had a Broviac pick. It's a complicated pick that's very expensive to install, and this patient had 3 of them pull out. And when they pull out to reinstall them, they have to put the patient under anesthesia. Obviously very expensive. And they got it placed, but this kid just kept pulling it out. Very, very active and didn't mind it. So they were actually trialing our product at the hospital in another unit. Well, somebody from the vascular access team got called in because this patient kept having the problem. And the nurse said, this product is approved to be used. It's indicated for use on this kind of IV line that this patient has. I don't care that they're not in our product eval. Let's put one on them.
Yeah.
And that patient went on to separate our device 3 times, but they never lost their device. Their device stayed in place. The hospital, that's dramatic. They even said that they felt like this patient was losing vascular access. They did not think that they could find another vein to install in the next time. So the fact that we saved the line potentially 3 times, they said they feel like it might have even saved the child's life. Now, when we were creating this device, we hoped to help people, and it's an IV, right? We thought we'd help millions of people, but hearing somebody say that this device might have saved somebody's life is like mind-blowing. As a founder of a company, it's your hope, but to hear somebody say that was just really remarkable. So we're trying to get some of those individual cases that get published that help. But I will say that we have one of these innovative nurses. She's in North Dakota. She saw this product. She was just down for the fight to get it into her hospital. And I will just tell you that they did a prospective trial with 100 devices placed, and we're just getting the final data. And it matches our randomized clinical trial exactly. The separation rates and so on and so forth are exactly the same. But there's nothing, so our next thing is, can we get that published in the next 6 months to have, there are 3 companies in this space, and we're the only company with any clinical data. And this will be the second paper published on it, on actual patients. And this one had pediatric patients in it too.
Yeah.
So that'll be the first pediatric patient on any breakaway device on any kind of line in the world to be published. So we just need more data, and it just takes time, and it takes these super committed nurses that are dedicated and go to the links required to prove it out. to
Yeah.
everybody. We're proving it out for everybody. It's really amazing.
No, that's super awesome. That's cool too, the story about how they were talking about it saving the child's life. Like, you're like, yeah, I don't expect that with this device
Right.
that we created by any means, but when you
We're
see
happy just
things,
keeping somebody from getting one more needle stick, right? That's a big
yeah.
win.
But then you hear it saving somebody's life and you're like, wow. So like this really is, like so life changing for people. And I mean, also even just not having to get stuck. Like when you're in the hospital, you're already stressed out. Like you're already kind of on edge. You're already not feeling good probably because you're in the hospital, and getting stuck with a needle is just another thing that you're like, I don't want to do this more times than I have to.
Right. I mean, you're not worried about x-rays and CTs or physical therapy or whatever. Most people go into the hospital, they're like, how many times am I going to get stuck before they get this IV to work properly?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. And so I guess with Lineus, what are kind of the goals for Safeguard over the next year or so? What's kind of on the horizon for you all over there?
Yeah, we have a really big hospital account that's looking to standardize their IV care across all 28 hospitals, and they're considering Safe Break being a part of that. And this fall, we're going into our big product evaluation there, and it's just that one big thing, that can take our startup from doing okay in sales to being on a whole different plane of sales. So yeah, we're in that 10 to 15 accounts reordering product regularly now, and we're fighting, scrapping our way to get to that 25 accounts that order regularly. And beyond that, that's when the big companies in our space that sell the IV pumps and the tubing will take notice and realize that this new category of product is actually going to grow and turn into this multi-million-dollar thing over time. And if we're able to accomplish 25 accounts with a 6-person company, what will they do with their sales force of 200 salespeople? Not even their back office people, right? So they'll just take our little company that's proven out the sales model and put that model on steroids, really, and try to blow it up.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. That's super awesome. Well, I would love for you to tell my listeners, where is the best way to find you? Where is the best way to find Lineus online if they're interested in learning more information? I will also put all of the links in the show notes as well.
Okay, great. Yeah. I'm Vance Clement. I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find me there, connect with me, and let me know that you listen to the podcast. Our website is lineusmed.com, so that's LINEUS med.com. So yeah, you can obviously go there and connect with us there. We do put out a comedy video every week on our social media stream about IVs and taking care of them, and their arms that go flying across the room, fake arms and different stuff. So yeah, if you enjoy a little bit of humor dropped into your social media every week, we try to give a little scientific evidence and a little humor along with it as well. So follow us on LinkedIn or any Instagram or any of the other places.
Awesome. And I'll put all those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate you and your time.
Thank you, Taylor. It's been fun.
Awesome.